Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, May 10th, 2021. My name is Mike Langford, and welcome back to another episode of DearBands Live, the podcast that explores the paths and stories of career-minded artists and music industry professionals. My guest tonight, a drummer who studied audio engineering and the recording arts, eventually finding his home on the road as a touring live sound engineer and stage and production manager. If you've caught hard rock and metal bands such as Pop Evil, Avatar, Skid Row, and In This Moment live in concert the past several years, you've probably heard his work. Easily one of the best in the business, not just at their job, but also as part of your tour crew family. Please welcome my guest tonight, live sound engineer, production manager, and fitness advocate, Brian Hardaswick. Brian.
Good evening. How's it going?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Fantastic. It's beautiful outside. Had a great day at work. Feeling good, and now I'm talking to you.
Excellent. It's been years. It's been years since we've chatted. We've crossed paths a lot on Facebook and the socials. But what are you up to these days?
Well, like many of us are, we've all found new avenues to keep busy during the pandemic. But I've my hands in a few different things. I've worked with a couple new live stream companies. I was with Topeka Live and Hello TV, which is here in Nashville. Prior to that, I got a job with a haunted house company here doing theatrical horror makeup for a month in October, which I really enjoyed. I've been cooking a lot and working a couple side gigs, some of those side hustles just to keep the cash coming in and keep mind, soul, and body together.
I have to ask, okay, the October Halloween gig, because I have seen the pictures of that, and you look like you're having a blast doing that. Is that like an annual thing, or did you just pick that up, or?
I've always had a huge obsession with Halloween. Since I was a little kid, horror movies, anything scary, you name it, it had my attention. And I've always been very into theater. I found theater fascinating, people being able to disguise themselves in characters, but I really don't have any like a longevity in horror makeup and theatrical makeup. I just bought a bunch of stuff and watched some tutorials, and I just started playing with it. And it kind of made sense. I can see what I want to do. And so I'll just kind of start to create and do layers and blood and skin and all that. And then you saw the results. So I try to do a different character every night. And then I got to help some of the people in the actual that were also actors in there do some of their makeup and help them out.
So you get paid to do this?
Absolutely.
That's amazing, because it sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
It was. It kind of I went on a whim. I saw that they were hiring, so I reached out and I was like, I have the month off. How cool of a job would that be to scare people for a living for a little while? And then it turned into a avenue other than just the acting part of getting to know them. And this is a major haunt. This has been here for almost 10 years. It's an entire shopping mall that's been gutted and rebuilt. It's full of animatronics. There's 125 of us there every single night. So it's a big event and a big production, but it was great. It was creative and kept me busy.
This is going to turn into just talking about Halloween Hunt now. I have not been to one of these. Are there guidelines of like how much you can scare somebody, or like, is there kind of like the do's and don'ts of your job description?
Yeah, this year was very strange with COVID. Of course, we had to wear masks. So I usually wear one of the gaiters, like the cloth one that wraps around like this.
Okay.
So I would do all this makeup and then come in, and then they're like, you have to wear a mask. And I was like, well, I'm still going to do the makeup anyways. I mean, this place, when you show up, it looks like a festival. There's a massive entrance. It's a huge Ouija board. There's axe throwing. There's bars in there. There's merch stores. There's tattoo artists. Like you can hang out for 2 hours. No kidding. Inside of just the courtyard before you even go into the 4 haunted houses.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's very fascinating.
You mentioned earlier, we had a quick chat before we started. You mentioned cooking. You mentioned that some of the time off the road.
Dude, cooking has become my number one passion. I love to eat. I'm really good at eating, and I like when people cook. Like most of us do. So in a nutshell, when the COVID hit, we had the tornado in Nashville. The building I was living in, we had the option to move out. So I did. I was supposed to go on tour for 10 months last year between China, Australia, Japan, all these incredible places for the first time. That all came to a stop. I moved out of my building. Luckily enough, my parents had bought a beach house or a retirement home down in Florida. And so I went and lived down there and did the remodel while they were back in South Dakota, waiting to come down till whatever happened with COVID. We bought a Blackstone grill, which is the flat top grill. and there was a Publix. The house was closed, so I didn't really have the option to go out and eat, nor did I really want to. And so I just started buying steaks, lamb chops, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, and I would just look up different options online. And I was cooking, and I was really enjoying it. I learned how to reverse sear a steak, which I've never done before. I've learned to make some incredible little side dishes and whatnot. And so I just kept cooking and cooking and cooking, and it stuck. And I would much rather have people over and host. I love to have people in the house. That's my favorite. And the kitchen's always been my favorite room in the house. So for me to cook and have people hanging out and laughter and enjoying themselves while I get to cook, it's like a new high for me.
I wanted to tie this in because the cooking thing and when you're on tour, some of us are fortunate to have catering when we're on the road. Like there's just food that's brought in or maybe there's menus and stuff like that. But just the idea of like preparing your own food versus, for weeks on end, you kind of just eat what's there.
Very much so. And the meal prep and going to the grocery store, we're very fortunate. So the building we live in Nashville has a grocery store in the basement of it. So we're pretty spoiled over here. But that's the most gratifying and calming part. It's like, at work today, like I decided I'm going to make a fettuccine Alfredo with chicken tonight. And so thinking about like what kind of ingredients I want to get, where the ingredients come from, how I'm going to prepare it, and like the actual part of, sauteing, cooking, making the noodles, making the sauce it's like a type of meditation, if you will.
No, it's something to be said because like you travel enough and you're just eating whatever's around, and when you get home and you're like, I can make whatever I want. A bit of an asterisk beside it, but it's like I can choose what I want to. And I do agree. There's something gratifying about preparing your own food, and
right, and know where it comes from. Like we go to nice restaurants or wherever you may go, but you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm like, did this burger fall on the floor before it came out?
Well, we hope not. But also, the last thing I would say on it too, which is like you mentioned, you love the kitchen, you love that's favorite in the house, you love having people over and entertaining. There's something to be said too about being able to prepare food and share it with people.
Absolutely.
Because you share a lot of meals on the road, but it's one thing to be actually able to prepare it and share it with people.
Absolutely. And that's the best part is, watching someone enjoy, like when you cook and sit down and, I cook about 99% in our house here, which is totally okay with me. And so when I get to make it, watch others enjoy it, it feels good on the heart and the soul. And, you're being creative when you're cooking. It's an art, culinary arts, it's very much so. It pushes you to get better and better with every meal, every spice you add. And so to see someone enjoy that and want it again or ask to cook again is a great feeling.
No, absolutely. Again, the year, I didn't realize you were heading to like a half dozen different countries. You're supposed to last year. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of hop into that for a second, the last year was definitely difficult for a lot of people that are in music or entertainment in general. And the idea where like a lot of your income would come from being on the road. How did you fill that time?
The time from being off the road?
Yeah.
So after we got hit by the tornado and then, COVID officially shut down our industry as a whole, I spent about 5 months in Florida. And that's when I did a remodel on my parents' house. And I learned a lot of skill in that gig. My uncle came down and was a contractor. And so he taught me, framing, basic electrical, basic plumbing, flooring. And so, I spent 5 months down there doing that. I got very much into kayaking. So there's a spot called the Wickiwachi River, which is a natural fed spring, 70 million gallons of water a day that feeds out into the Gulf. But it's crystal clear water, palm trees. It looks like a postcard. So I ended up getting a kayak, and every morning I'd get up at like 6 or 7 in the morning and go kayak for 4 hours. And it was the most calming, best way to start your day. And then I'd go work on the house. That got me to August. In August, I came back to Nashville. And that is when I started working for an event production company. Basically, they create massive props and pieces for like American Airlines, Jack Daniels, these massive companies for trade shows and convention centers. Because COVID stopped for them too, because they were a live-based company, we deconstructed the whole production warehouse and packed it up for 2 months. So that filled August and September. October and November, I was working for Nashville Nightmare doing theatrical makeup and acting at the haunted house. And that got me to the holidays. And really the holiday season was pretty tame. This was the first year of my entire life I didn't see my family on Christmas or Thanksgiving, for that matter. And so I kind of just hung out. I got more back into running. I was playing drums a lot, whenever I could when the roommates were gone. And so I had a side job. I started working for Night Train, which is a tour bus company here in Nashville and Phoenix. The owner of that company brought in a COVID project. And so we oversaw the completion of COVID test kits for hospitals, Amazon, and then at-home test kits.
Oh, wow.
So there was about 130 of us. There was production managers, bus drivers, audio engineers, catering, set carps, riggers, like you name it. He tried to create as many jobs as he could for
That's awesome.
We were so thankful. And so we were there for November until about a week ago for me. I was in there. And I made some great friends, possibly some new clients, and everyone had great road stories. When you're made for being on the go, whether it's on the road or at home and moving all the time, sitting down for 10 hours a day was really, really hard. They built me like a little extension for my table, and I would stand in place and just kind of march my feet because I had to like burn some sort of energy. Because my body's the type of, if I don't exert energy, it just builds up to the next day, and then I have twice as much, and then the third day, 3 times as much. So I really do my best to exert that as much as possible. But that's kind of how I filled the time, to be totally honest, is just picking away different projects, different interests. Keeping my mind busy is crucial. That's the most important thing for me.
I think it's interesting you talk about that energy, because like I've seen you at work. And like it's go all the time. Like very rarely you just in one spot doing one thing. There's usually a bunch of things to do. The idea of you being in a kayak and floating around, did the thought cross your mind like freedom? Because when you're on the road, like you're confined, like you have a set bunch of goals to accomplish every day. But the idea where you're in this kayak and you're floating around and you're just like, I can kind of do whatever I want right now.
I'll be honest, it was hard for myself to accept that for a while, because like for the last 10 years straight, I've been touring no less than 8 months a year on the road. And so my body and mind was very much so like busy, go, schedules, airports, ABC 123, Google Calendar, email every morning. That's how my brain worked. And when COVID hit in March, we did 2 Skid Row shows, and the second night they said we may not be able to play because of this thing that I didn't really understand what it was. When they say there's a pandemic and it's shutting down the world, that's hard for my brain to comprehend right away. So I came back to Nashville after that happened, and I didn't have an apartment anymore. Everything was in storage. Every tour was canceled, and every tour manager just said, we have no idea what's going on. We'll talk to you at further notice, which everyone was saying. It was on actually as of my birthday, my 33rd birthday, March 19th last year. I was in Nashville, and it was the first point in my life where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where I was going. I could stay in a hotel for as long as I needed to. I couldn't really go back to my parents' house because they hadn't been vaccinated. And this is when it was hitting hard. My grandmother's 80 years old. My mom's, she's 50 something. So I couldn't really, that wasn't an option. So I was like, I remember sitting in a hotel on my birthday eating sushi. And I was like, the only thing I can do is take a deep breath and pack a bag and just accept whatever's coming, because I can't prevent what's not going to happen or what is, either side of it. So I remember sitting there eating my food. I took a deep breath and I was like, I'm accepting this year for what it is. And I know in the next couple of days, there's going to be a windfall of some sort, and by the graces of above, my mom called and she's like, hey, we finally bought the house in Florida. Why don't you just pack up, get on a plane, go down there and just live there? Cause we're not coming down till at least July or August. And it was crazy. And by taking that deep breath, I'm like, let's go. So and I went and lived in Florida. I rented a car for a truck almost the entire year last year. And I made the best of it. I got really close with my uncle, which is my dad's twin, who I'd never met really before in my life. And he's an incredible man. His family was great. So I got to hang out with them, and we'd have coffee by the pool. We did that remodel. I played drums a lot, more than I probably played in the last 5 years. I was doing 4 to 6 hours a day. Kayaking, it was, once I got acceptable that this is how it was going to be for a long time, then yes, when I went kayaking, I did realize it was freedom. And I got into day trading for a while. I remember one day on a kayak, I was sitting there and I'd put money to DearBands when there's a few people behind that. I remember one day I made like $500 sitting in a kayak, watching myself make money on day trade. And I was like, I'm never going to tour again. I'm just going to get rich. And then I realized that there's a lot more to it than just going on E-Trade with a phone.
That's amazing. That is sign of the times right there. Just you're floating around a kayak and just doing some day trading.
But to end that question for you too, that this whole pandemic taught me to slow down and have patience and understand that it's okay to not go a million miles an hour. Because for me, like if I didn't get up and do something for 18 hours a day on or day off, like I felt like I wasted it. And like taking time for yourself and just relaxing, hanging out on the couch on a day off, like just laying in your bed in a hotel is crucial for mind, body, and soul. And I've learned that now. And now that I have that in me, I'm like, when I go back on the road, it's going to bring more calmness and more patience and allow me to do a better job. No, you have to shut your brain off at some point and then turn it on again. You can't just let it run nonstop.
No, and you say 18 hours a day. You're not joking. That's what it can be like. And it's like your head hits the pillow and then your alarm goes off, or your internal alarm just says like, we got to get back up and get to work. And you're right. It's like people who haven't toured don't understand how your body and mind changes. Right. It turns into that 12-hour, that morning and night turns into a 24-hour clock, and you're just working on things all the time, and you're go, and that's your speed.
Absolutely. And in my case, I'm never just like the front of house guy. I never get like the luxury of just having one job. And it's not a complaint, trust me. But as the production manager, especially like with more so like within this moment and like the bigger shows that we're doing, is not only am I doing audio, but I've advanced the show. So I need to go in the mornings, make sure our CO2 tanks are there, make sure our truck is on the loading dock by 7 a.m., make sure our buses are in the right place, make sure the trailers are in a fire lane. So I am the first guy off the bus, Katie and myself. And, that starts at 6 a.m. We're loading in by, 9 a.m. Sound checks at noon. We have 4 more bands on the bill, and I have to be in the building. We've got a balloon drop going up in the air. I've got a kabuki that has to be thrown up. I've got 75,000 hair fans on stage that all have to work. It's 5 o'clock. I'm hoping I have time for dinner. Then it's doors. Then I just have to be on site. We had a really unfortunate event at a show where a gentleman passed away out in the lobby by the merch table. And like, I had to be the guy on site as the production manager on behalf of the act that saw what happened along with others. So I'm always on site. And then by that point, it's almost showtime. Then it's 9 o'clock. Then the show's over at 11. And then we have to pack all this up into the truck. And by that point, it's 2 a.m, 3 o'clock if we're lucky. And so, 18-hour days are 100% realistic, not an exaggeration of any amount.
Yeah, it's not a career choice for just anybody. Like you need to know if it's something you really want to do, you enjoy doing it, but also can you physically do it?
Absolutely. Because I've seen people come out that say they can handle it, and nope. Nope.
And that's okay. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely a thing. It's very, very tough. And I'd say on the band side of it too, because lots of bands have these big, dreams of getting the bus and doing this and that. And it's like, it's still a lot of work. It's a lot of work for like everybody involved. And the idea of just and to kind of bring it full circle is just like you're in close quarters a lot. Like when you're either traveling in your van or your bus or bandwagon or whatever, or you're in the venue or in the hotel, it's like you're very rarely just like free to do whatever you want for a long period of time. And I think that cracks a lot of people too.
Yeah. I live in this body, in this shell, but all my time and focus and brain and personality is given to the boss, because, you're a direct extension of them. And, if they're doing press or they're doing a meet and greet, a massage, if they're off site, and they're like, what size is the stage? How am I getting there? What's the entry point? What's the crowd look like? Any issues with the lighting rig? Like, I always have to have those answers. That's what you're paid to do. And so like, I'm inside Brian Hardaswick's body, but he's completely devoted to something else for that tour.
No, it is. It's a team. It's a sum of the parts. So you went to school for audio engineering?
I did.
And so how did you end up? Because one thing, like I've lived in the studio for a long time. How did you end up behind the board doing live events? Or how did you stand up on tour in general?
So from a young age, I played drums since I was a little kid. And playing drums always just made sense to me. Rhythm, the show, I idolized people like Tommy Lee, Morgan Rose, Will Hunt. So I watched all these really cool, like theatrical, like stick spins, like all the cool stuff. And I just would sit in my bedroom for hours and hours and hours, like in front of a mirror and just like play on my bed with drumsticks. And then as I got older, I got a drum set and kept playing and playing. So the whole goal this whole time was I was going to wait till I was 18. I was going to move to Los Angeles, and I was just going to make it and be a rock star. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Right? You know, when you're 18, you got it. You got it all figured out. And so I kept that goal. And I know out of high school, I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I want to move to Hollywood. You know, I want to live behind a music store in a cardboard box by a dumpster, try out for 1,000 bands, and then get discovered. You know, like that was the plan. And she's like, you know, she totally supported it. She's like, whatever you want to do, like, I get it. Like, if you want to go be homeless in Hollywood, cool. But she said, I would rather you go to school and get a degree, you know, just to have something under your belt. Because she's like, you're going to get to a point in your life where you may wish that you did it, and you're going to rather do it now than when you're 25, 35, 45. She's like, so we fully support you, but I would suggest you do this. So I listened and I fought, and then I listened and then I fought her on it. And so I was like, all right, if I'm going to go to school, it's going to be for something that I have a passion in, music related. And so I researched, and this college actually came to our high school, and they had this audio engineering and recording program. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I can still play drums and get better at, you know, whatever this means, audio recording. I didn't really know. And so, you know, I did. I went down there, I went to Northeast College in Norfolk, Nebraska, and I did audio engineering, recording, studio production. And then after that, I stayed after I graduated with that, and I did theater production, script writing, and then some music business classes. And so that's kind of where the schooling part of that came into play. And then as soon as I was done with school, I moved back to South Dakota and worked for Guitar Center for a few years. And that's when I had started a few bands and was touring as a drummer. You know, and then as things do, we got really close on a couple things, and then we kind of slipped out from underneath of us. I started another band, and unfortunately I met one of the coolest guitar players in the world. If I have time to tell this quick little side story here.
Yeah.
I was at and this guy walks in, and he's got this cool hair, like an open, like leopard print shirt on, and like disco ball pants and like leopard print shoes. And when you're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, like not a lot of people look like this. And I had long hair, and I was wearing makeup, and I just wanted to be in like the modern day Stone Temple Pilots is like what we were going for. Anyways, the guy walked in, and I tried to start a band with him. I was like, do you want to be in a band? And he kind of like looked at me up and down, and he was like, with who? And I'm like, with me. And he was like, no. You turned me down at Guitar Center. Anyway, he came back in, and I bugged him a few more times, and we started a really cool project for about 6 months. And unfortunately, he had some issues and ended up taking his life. And so I was really bummed about that. So I was just in a band for 2 years that had a record deal on the table that got turned away by someone. And then I started this next band, and then this gentleman passed away. And so after that, this is like 2010, I realized like I was always the last man standing in every project, and that it was maybe this wasn't the right focus. Like I need to shift my energy somewhere else. That transitioned. One night I went to go see 3 bands play. It was Hailstorm, Papa Roach, and Pop Evil. And it was a torrential downpour. So I almost didn't go to the show this night. I'll never forget this. My mom dropped me off because we rode up together to have like a Mother-Son Day or whatever. And she's like, are you sure you want to go? It's going to downpour. The show's outside. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go. It's something to do. So I went. Weren't a lot of people there. This band called Pop Evil plays. They come off stage and they're loading their stuff out. And I like to talk to everybody. So I'll go backstage and shake any hand I can, any phone number I can get. That's, you know, networking is key. Met a guy named Bobo who was the guitar tech, and I started talking to him. And I was like, I really want to get on the road. I'll do whatever it takes. I can leave right now. I'll go for free. Like I'll leave all my stuff in my house, whatever I got to do. And he's like, okay, cool. Everybody says the same story. We swap information. Well, about a month later, this is June 2011. Yeah, 2011, excuse me. They played again. So I went up, I drove 4 hours in my car that was basically falling apart, and went, like, hung out with them again, like got their attention. Like, hey, I'm the guy from South Dakota. I was talking to you about getting on the road, met the band. He's like, yeah, cool, we'll call you sometime. So I went home, and this would have been June 20th or July 20th, 2011. I was going boating with my roommates, and we're getting ready to leave and get out of the house. We're going down the road, and my cell phone goes off, and it just says Bobo Pop Evil. The exact words were, hey, what are you doing? And I knew in the back of my head, like, that was the call. I finally got the call that was going to get me out of South Dakota and on the road into the industry I wanted. Like, I had the gut feeling. So I call him, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he says, we need a drum tech. We need you to be here tomorrow. Can you really up and go? And I'm like, I'm on the first flight there. So I hang up the phone, call my mom, and I'm like, this is it. Like, I got the call. And so I got my flight, and I didn't even tell my roommates. I was like, I need a duffel bag. So I packed a duffel bag, not even a suitcase, a duffel bag. and I had my Motley Crue The Dirt book with me because I was reading that at the time. And I booked a flight out at 6 a.m. and I didn't even tell my roommates I was moving out. I just left everything in the house. I paid my bills that I owed them, and they just threw everything out. TV, dresser, clothes, bedding. I just left it all. Like I literally up and left because I knew that this was that moment. Got on a flight, flew to Jackson, Mississippi, at a place called Fire, and that was my very first show on the road with Pop Evil. And then from that point forward, it just continued to grow through networking experience, tours, fill-ins, etc.
That story is bonkers. It's inspiring, and it's one of those things where like that's how it can happen, you know. And the thing too, not to scare anybody, but it's like you could have said like, oh, I can't right now, and never got that call again, because usually there's somebody else on the list. Usually you're kind of waiting
always
to be the next.
Very much so. And I think about that all the time is had I not answered that text message, or had I not called him, I may still be sitting in South Dakota right now working in a music store and never have experienced the incredible things that I have to this point in my life.
Yeah, you have to want it, and you have to be, you know, it's that luck thing, that opportunity and preparedness. It's like you were prepared with your education, but also with your, you know, from what I'm seeing, like and hearing, like your hunger to learn more. And to meet more people. And the idea where like, it's one thing to go to these shows, and it's awesome that you can remember like so vividly, like what these days were like, that you went to these concerts and the environment and things around it. It's like, that's how it works. It's like, you have to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. And people like, oh, 4 hours to drive. I'm not driving 4 hours, you know?
And that's the key is, you know, so many people are expectant. They think something's just going to come to them. And sometimes it does, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I was raised on like hard work, respect, honesty, and love, like blue collar family in South Dakota on a farm. And so, you know, I came from a town of 800 people. I graduated with 23. And now I have friends in Paris, and I have friends in Scotland, and I have clients in bands I grew up idolizing with posters on my wall that will text me. And, you know, Rachel from Skid Row lives here in Nashville, and he'll text me from time to time like, hey, let's go get a beer. Hey, how's it going? And it's all hard work and drive. And I'm a very, very passionate person. And sometimes even in my own self, I can kind of misconstrue my passion for like getting a little overly aggressive on things, but it's because I care so much and I love so much. It's like really on attention, you know? And that's the same with the road. Like you have to be focused and know what you want. You don't, and it's no guarantee. Like you don't go to college for audio engineering and then the Rolling Stones just call you and you're all of a sudden you're on tour with them. You know, it's all about networking. And there's two things I say. You only have your reputation and your talent. That's all you have on the road. And if you tarnish one of those two things, like you're in a really bad place. You know, if we were on a tour together and we got fist fights every single night, or like you didn't like your guitar tone, or you know, like you build a reputation. People are like, I probably wouldn't tour with him. Last tour he did, like they had a big issue with, you know, the way he did this or she did that or they do this. And then the word travels. It's like telephone. So those are the two things you have to have solidarity in this industry.
No, it is a small industry when you really start to think about it, because like a lot of the same people cross paths all the time. And I'd say like with festivals and stuff too, it's like that's kind of a chance for everyone to kind of say hi to each other, because you're off doing your own thing, especially a lot of headliner bands. It's like they can get together and, you know, you don't have tons of time to hang out and party, but it's like, it's still nice to see someone, you know, in real life and see how they're doing stuff like that. I wanted to ask about that first. Oh, sorry. I wanted to talk about one thing for a second. You mentioned the idea of like passion and, you know, the aggressive passion, or how you worded it. Right. I'm always of the thought too, because like we all know people like that, but I'm always reminding people who might not understand. It's like we're on the same team. You can be very passionate about something, but it's just like it's for the greater good. It's never just like, it's never just ego. It's always just like, I think this is the best for everybody, you know, and you want to get that across to people, because if you're too passive, it's like, it's probably not going to get heard.
Very much. So. Yeah, exactly. And with me, you know, when I'm into something or I love something, whether it's a new plugin, whether it's a person, whether it's a place, an event, like I'm giving it my fully undivided attention inside and out. Like my brain's not thinking about anything else when I'm focused on whatever that thing is. And so, and you know, like I said, that passion, I want to know inside out, left, right, up, every way that it works, how it works, why it thinks that way, why the event is this way, why this place is in this location. And sometimes like I think I do dig too deep because it's passion. Like I'm full 100% like you have Brian's brain, but I'm also, when I'm passionate about something, it gets my best, truly. Like it has my blood, sweat, tears, and heart into it, and always will. Every single show that I mix with my eyes closed probably about 80% of the time, because I'm just so focused on the crowd enjoying the show, the band being pleased, and like I'm living a dream. I mean, I get to mix audio for a living, and in such incredible environments with talented people. I mean, how lucky am I? And so I really like when I'm mixing that show, nothing else around me exists. And I'm the same way, like with people or a restaurant. Like if you and I sit down at a restaurant, like you are my focus, like, and everything else is pushed away at that point because that's our time, that's our moment. Same thing with the mix. When I advance a show, when I cook a meal, if I go for a run, I zone out completely, and that run is the focus.
No, that's great advice in general. Just the people, because especially in this day and age, where like everything's fighting for your attention, our phones and social media and emails. And I wanted to ask, that first Pop Evil tour, how maybe don't name any names just in case, but like, how was the rest of the crew towards you? Cause like you're a new person. I imagine people, as we've talked about earlier, like people come into this line of work and they realize that it's not for them and they can't really cut it. So like, how was that process kind of joining the team with other people that are part of the crew and the band? And
right. You remember what it feels like on your first day of 8th grade when you're like nervous that your new clothes don't look cool and you're not sure if you remember all the Limp Bizkit lyrics? It's kind of like you got like that little, like that first day of school feeling in your stomach a little bit, because not only you're going to a new job, but this isn't a normal job. This is like, there's rock stars, there's ego, there's personality, there's a whole lifestyle that goes along with it. And, and good lifestyles and bad, But I remember I was so excited and so eager and so hungry that when I showed up, they were the band and the crew were the nicest group of guys in the world. Tony was the first one I met. He was the old guitar player. He always had like the purple hair pushed to one side. And he's the first one. He's like, "Hey man, we're glad to have you. You're blah, blah, blah. Welcome. Anything you need, let us know." And then the drummer, Chachi or Josh Marundi, he and I hit it off immediately, and to this day are best friends. We talk a couple times a week. I fly up there for Friendsgiving. I was in his wedding. He's one of my biggest mentors on the planet. And we can get into that as we go on. But he and I were super cool that first day. Lee would come out and he hung out. And so, I was like, that first night, I'm like, wow, I'm on tour with this band. Blackstone Cherry was the headliner, and a band called Lansdowne was the opener. And next thing I know is like 2 days, 5 days, 10 days. And then it just felt like home and family. And I realized I was seeing all these incredible cities. Like I remember waking up in New York City for the first time, seeing the Statue of Liberty, the World Trade Center site. And I was like, whoa, this hard work and drive and passion is the reason I'm standing here in New York City. Like, it's not like I'm here on a vacation or I'm not having to pay for this. I'm being paid to be here. And I also remember that night specifically going to bed and then waking up at the ocean and down like by South Carolina. And I was like, I just saw the Statue of Liberty and now I'm at the ocean. And then we're playing an outdoor festival of 5 of my favorite bands tomorrow. So I was so thankful and so humble that, I fit in right away. And not realizing, I never thought of myself as an audio engineer. I just went to college to get the degree. But, I used to listen to records and CDs all the time and analyze music. I didn't realize the whole time I was training my ear and that I had an ear for this or an art for it, if you will. And so as I started drum teching, I noticed, the band was having issues with monitors. So I was like, well, I think I can do monitors. So I started doing it with the house gear. And I learned about EQ and frequencies and adjustment and, feedback. And I got that under control. And a year later after that, I took all my own money and I bought an audio console, a digital board. And I'm like, I want to run my own monitors. And then I bought my own wireless rack for all their in-ears. So I had all that gear was mine. And then I got them on in-ear monitors. And then we just kept growing the show. So as I was growing with the band and the band was getting bigger, every year I was acquiring new skills. I was buying gear. Any tour we would do, I'm always asking front of house guys, like, why do you use that microphone? What's your technique? What are your plugins? Why do you tune the PA that way? And 99% of them, I'm still like, I text again, like on a weekly basis, like Bruce Ritter from Five Finger Death Punch, their front of house engineer. Another one of my biggest mentors. I will call him and ask him pretty much anything at any time. Chad Olick, another one. He does like Fall Out Boy, and he was doing Shinedown for a while out at front of house and production managing. And even like life questions. I called him with some financial questions last year because he's very smart with the way he manages money. And these people become your friends, And so as I grew with the band, I grew with all these other incredible people, and it's just a giant family. And still is to this day. I still talk to all the Pop Evil guys.
No, it's amazing just to hear the progression. Because again, like it's you see opportunities in the idea of like getting behind the monitor board, and just trying to help everyone have a better show that way. And you see there's a spot there instead of just kind of, there's times definitely just to stick to your lane for certain things and not step on any toes. But it's like, if you think you can make something better.
Right. You know, like I would hear feedback in Lee's microphone, but the house guy's outside smoking cigarettes because he doesn't really care about the band. And me, I'm like, I would kill to be behind that console right now, EQing. I know it's 3.15 hertz. It needs to come down 5 dB. And I know it's 250 hertz below with a high pass on his vocal to make it sound better. But when you go tell somebody that, even if you say it in the most respectful manner, they're like, okay, cool kid, whatever, you know, they'll tell you to piss off. But that's why I bought this little digital console, and I could do all those adjustments. And then I heard a change. I heard quality. I started using effects, delays, reverbs, and the band was more into it. Chachi was like, oh, my drums sound huge, you know. And so you're instilling confidence not only in yourself, but in the band. Like, they're playing a better show. They're in a better mood. The crowd feeds off it more. They sell more merch. The band makes more money. You get it. You know, that's how it works.
You definitely play different on stage when it feels good on stage.
Absolutely.
And it definitely play differently too. And you're like, I don't think this sounds very good, especially from a drummer point of view too. Like when you hit your kick drum and like the stage does shake, or just like everything just feels awesome. It feels like larger than life. It's way more fun.
And then there's nothing as horrifying as when your in-ears cut out when you're playing and you lose your click track.
And it just sounds like acoustic drums. You're like, oh, it's not exactly the same. Because even in recording, like bringing drums back for people, and it's like, oh, like it's like my toms sound awesome, and it's like, yeah, that's what the record should sound like. So let's kind of get there. A couple of things I want to bring from the chat. Chuck Williams saying, can you play drums like Chachi?
Oh, Chuck. No, that he has, technicality wise, I can hang with him. His aggression and spasmodic chaos and energy that he has on stage, absolutely not. I would fall over and have a heart attack.
Has he ever, from what I remember, had cymbals that aren't cracked?
Never. Nope. Because, I mean, he just hits everything as hard. He's like a caveman on drums.
Because I remember seeing them just like, wow, there's not a lot holding those together. They work, but they're pretty...
as hard as you see him hit is how hard he hits everything.
Yeah.
Everything's dented and bent and there's blood all over. But there was 3 shows. This was March 2013 or 14. Unfortunately, his grandma passed away pretty unexpectedly, and overnight he had to go home, and I had to fill in for him. So I played a few shows for Pop Evil, and so I'll tell you, from not like I play drums, I get it, I know the songs. But when you don't play 17 songs a night forever, and then you have to do it all of a sudden for 3 nights in a row, props to him, 100%. I mean, I made it through the shows, but I was like, whew, more stick tricks, less.
I imagine that probably feels like, okay, you're going to run a marathon, but you're going to jump off the back of the truck and just start going.
100%. Like, I remember I didn't sleep the entire night. I just listened to the songs over and over and over and over, and I made notes on a yellow pad. I remember like loading in, and then I remember all of a sudden it's the show starting. And I just remember like, because we have like, you know, we have the click track and the whole band is on the click track and there's time code running. And so like, I can't mess this up because it messes up. The whole show is counting on this. And I remember like looking over and hitting spacebar, and then I have like 3 little flashbacks of like just playing in the show, but I don't remember really any of it at all. It was completely blackout.
You're in the zone.
Yep.
That's what happens when you're in the zone. I wanted to bring this up to Jeremy Isbell. I said for several years when I was doing front of house, I always say, how would Brian Hardaswick handle this? Your drive has got me out of some tight jams. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. That's very kind of you to say. I don't even know what I would do sometimes.
After I had Jeremy on the show, he's just like, I get Brian on here. I'm like, I'm working on it. I wanted you mentioned about, you know, people that you ask for advice. I'll admit, I was going through your Facebook stuff. The Kelly shoe system for kick drums. Did someone tip you off to that, or did you discover that? For anyone that doesn't know, Kelly shoe system, it's like a mounted kick drum mic inside the kick drum that floats in there.
Yeah. I did not. I found it through, I want to say maybe it was either like Five Finger Disturbed or Korn. One of those like headliners was playing, and I remember seeing it in the kick drum, and that it was suspension mounted. And for me, I was like, that's killer that you can do that, because I can put like my Telefunken M82 and my 91 in there, I'm going to nerd out about audio for a second. Phase is very important. So if you have two sound sources from each other, this one is going to hear the audio split milliseconds before this one is, causing phase issues. So it can sound, like you're in a bathroom, or like a kick drum sounds really weak. But when you can line them on top of each other and they're in the bass drum, they're receiving the sound source at the exact same time. And you get that, like that punch and that grit, and like that's that arena shaking kick drum. So that's what turned me on to that, was I was able to get both microphones in perfect placement and not have any phase issues on that. Also, when you put like a tripod based mic stand on a drum riser, you get noise from the riser every time it hits whatever, background, etc. What I'm doing different within this moment is I put Kelly shoe mounts in every single drum.
Saw that too.
Yep. So inside of every single tom, I have them in there. And the reason I do that, I get the mics really close to the head, and I don't have any bottom heads on any of the drums. And it gives me a very like industrial, heavy, think like Rammstein and meets like, I don't know, like Dr. Feelgood Motley Crue drums. Because that's the band who works with Kevin Sherko, and that's how he mixes the drums on the album, and they want it to sound as close to the album as possible. So by having those Kelly shoe mounts, I don't get any sort of shell noise, microphone clip never falls off, and the whole thing moves with the riser. So there's never any, I don't have to worry about shell noise bleeding through, etc. And it keeps them completely away from all my cymbals. So I can leave the gates more open and get a huge tom sound. I think that's, without this sounding conceited by any means, I probably get the most compliments on my drum sounds when people come to our shows. They're like, how do you make them sound like that? And really, it's nothing. It's, gate compression, EQ, reverb, but the mic placement is so crucial. I mean, a microphone here, or here is going to give you 3 different sounds.
No, I was going to ask about that, if you could get the bottom skin back on the tom, but I guess if you don't need it, you don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, some people, if you're mixing a band that requires more tonality from a drum, like Rush, like obviously, he doesn't want Metallica sounding metal drums. He wants Neil drums. So it works for us. Some people don't dig it. Some people have questioned it. I could drill into the shell and run the XLR cable through there and then put the bottom head back on. But yeah, this works for us, and he likes it. We have a monitor engineer, Trip, who's on the other end of the snake. And so I want to make sure he likes what he's getting to, because he's got to mix the band in their ears. But yeah, I love the Kelly shoe stuff. Jeffrey's great. I've hung out with him before. He's from Lincoln, Nebraska. I went to college right by where he lives. I think we've had lunch a couple times actually, and he's great. He's got his stuff on everybody's stage across the world. Yeah,
I think I owe it to you for seeing the Kelly shoe system. And I was like, what is that? Because we had issues when we were touring a couple of years ago where vocalists kept hopping on the kick drum and jumping off and stuff. So the idea of like one of those little claw stands, and it kept getting messed up. Right. I remember telling front of house, being like, I've got a kick drum in there, and they always want to use their microphone. I'm like, I get that, but just for tonight, there's a tail hanging out of my kick drum. Just plug in there, because that kick drum stand is not going to last very long. It's just a matter. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So, but I just think it's awesome. Again, you're trying to innovate when you're seeing stuff, because like it doesn't work for everybody, but for that tour and the sounds you're after, you got to experiment. And also too, it's like you invest your own money into your art form, into your craft.
Absolutely. I mean, that you gain growth and you get better with not only time, but investment. You invest in yourself. Even you go for a run for 30 minutes, you invested that time into yourself. It's going to probably give you a bit of a runner's high. You be like a little bit sharper with your thinking, and you get a little bit better. Every little adjustment you make for the better will show a result in one form or another.
Yeah. A lot of people, not say a lot of people, but just like some people, and it's hard to hear at times because they're waiting for things to just come to them. They're waiting for opportunities or results or, things just to be handed to them. And it's like, I know way more stories of people who just went out there and got it. Not going out there and take it, but just went out there and got what they were after and explore things and stuff like that. So it's awesome to hear so many of these stories from you. So you're on the road with Pop Evil. Yep. You're running some monitors now. Did it hit a point when you were running front of house where you're just like, I'm good at what I do. This sounds good.
There definitely was, so I was on stage with Pop Evil for almost 4 years. And then the tour manager was getting busy enough with the band where he couldn't do front of house anymore. And so that's when I kind of took the opportunity And I was like, hey, I would like to mix this band. I think they're happy on stage. We can bring somebody else in to do that. I'd like to do front of house. And so that's when I got moved out there. And I do remember like listening to the drums, and I'm like, these drums sound good. And people would compliment drums, or someone would be like, I like how you pan your guitars, and how, your solo is never overbearing from the rhythm player, and it's mixed very well. And I can hear things like that. I'm confident in the way that I can place individual instruments to create a mix, because when you watch or when you listen to one of my shows, I try to make everything very individualized. So when you're watching, you hear that splash, or you hear that guitar player, you hear that little pluck on the bass string, or that you hear, if this person's whispering, you still hear it. Like if it's being audibly released on stage, it should be audibly perceived by those in the crowd, no minuscule or massive. But yeah, and through confidence of other individuals and through other bands and my own self, I record a show every single night and I listen to it back. I critique myself. But yeah, at the end of Pop Eagle is when I probably realized that I will be a front of house engineer or a studio engineer for the rest of my life to some degree.
So going from like clubs, medium sized rooms, going to like an outdoor festival and you're mixing it. Did you notice, is there a learning curve for that, or how's like?
Oh yeah. It is very intimidating when you show up to a festival in front of 80,000 people and you're controlling everything that they hear. It's the same concept as the PA. You just have more of it. You have delay towers and that's all handled by the system tech of the festival. But, when you get out there, one thing that I had to learn was dB limits, especially when you go to Europe. Like Sweden Rock is 99.0 dB limit. You get 3 chances to go over it, and after you do, you get fined, and they just shut power off and your show's over. It's very strict. Switzerland is like 85 decibels. It's insane. But
85's not loud.
No, not at all.
For people listening, that's not loud.
Yeah. And so, getting used to that, but me, like, when you show up, you want this big, heavy, powerful rock and roll mix that shakes the earth and blows everybody away. But then you're like, wait, I can only do it at 98 dB. Like, it's impossible. But people like, Bruce Ritter, Chad Olick, one of my favorite front of house engineers, Eddie Mapp, who's done, Everyone Under the Sun. That's where they teach you how to like properly align the PA, make sure your PA is in phase, microphone placement. And when you really learn, not just the mixing side, but the math and science side of audio is when you really learn how to mix in those environments. And that was something I never did. I didn't know how to, on a festival. So a lot of it's trial and error. But as you learn and you grow, mixing in an 800 seat theater to a 20,000 seat arena, then you have a massive room where audio swirling around and you can't stop it. So you have to use it differently. You have to move, you delay things. You move them back and forth to perceive and change. And it just, you learn every day. Like that's all there is. 99% of what I know and what I do, I learned on the road. That applies to my career.
No, saying you gotta learn it on the road. It's like, that's the recording side of things for me. It's very, to me, it's very calm. It's very structured. It's very like, it's not as intense as when I see things live, because live, it's like, it has to work right now. If in the recording studio,
yeah.
In the recording studio, if it doesn't work, it's like, oh, we'll just do it again. But like live, like it has to work. This has to kind of sound good today. So like that pressure, like I don't feel that pressure in the studio as much as the idea of feeling that pressure live. The idea of doing those festivals or those arenas, is there anyone that you kind of met along the way that kind of gave you some heads up on things, like, or did you had any calls that you made? Like, is there anything I need to know going into this?
Definitely. When I found out the first big tour I did was Pop Evil, we were opening for Disturbed. At all arenas. And so, I was confident in my mix. I was confident in putting on a good show. I just wasn't confident in how to mix sound in a room that big. Like, what do you do with issues? And so Brett Carpenter is the front of house engineer for Disturbed. He was with Rush for, I believe, like 14 years. Incredible engineer. And he's a guy that doesn't only know every in and out of audio of the mixing side, but he knows the math and science. A lot of front of house guys do the system tech, and the system tech puts the PA up in the air. They tune it, they get it all ready, and then you just come out and mix the show. You sit down and you move faders. But Brent's a guy that knows how his PA works, why it works, why the amp racks are the way they are. He does all of it. And so he was very hands-on with me, and he's like, here's the thing. I'll sit out here with you, and any question you have, I'll help you. He very much like utilize me for whatever you need, and I did, and that really helped. So by the end of that tour, I was arena confident in mixing and putting on shows. And then add to that production managing, getting backdrops up in the air, lighting. You don't get to use the whole rig when you don't carry a light package, so you have to meet the lighting guy to even light the band up. Parking the bus, like they don't care where you park the bus. They got 10 of their own to park, so there's like a lot of other elements to it than just the audio side for me. Like dressing rooms, like can we get one? Is there a shower in it? What about laundry? Can we have catering? And these are all questions I'm going to get asked every single day. So I'm trying to, not step on toes, but I'm representing my band and I'm their leader between myself and the tour manager. So I need to also be very present and make, let the guys know who we are and that we're there.
It sounds like you've met a lot of friendly and helpful people.
Absolutely.
Along the way. Because that's something like, I feel like a lot of people I've met have been very friendly and helpful as long as you're asking the right questions. Because there's definitely times when you can kind of figure something out.
Yep.
But it's good to ask the right questions for people because it can save you some time. And also I think when you ask the right questions, they understand that you're on the right track. And it's not, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I was agreeing with what you say. And one thing I still do to this very day is before I go to bed, I try to tell myself something that I learned that day that I didn't know. So I like to go to bed knowing something new every single day, even if it's minuscule. Like I was told that there was a specific species and numbers of tree species in existence. The number I was told was way wrong, and I was immediately corrected, and I was off by about 60,000.
Okay.
Yeah. But like little things like that. And I went to bed that night. I remember this. It's like a couple weeks ago. I went to bed. I'm like, I learned how many species of trees there are in the world. And not that that's ever probably gonna be relevant in my life unless I'm on Jeopardy. But
end up on Jeopardy, never know.
Yeah. But especially in the audio world, like when you advance catering, I would never have thought of asking if they have vegan options until we had a vegan on one of our tours. And they're like, always make sure that you ask if someone is, if they have this or they can eat this or if they're allergic to this. And now I do that. It's in my advance. I would never in my life have thought of asking that question. Like, is there shore power for the bus or do you have to run a generator? Some cities you can't run generators and your bus just sits cold. So, you learn a lot of little things every day and you just apply it and you get better. It's a foundation that we're building a house. And you know what, like you go obviously whole foundation, floor, walls, etc.
Back to festivals and some of the, because I think that's the time a lot of like the larger acts get a chance to kind of get together. Who are some of the bands where you're just like, they sound awesome? Who's some of your favorites?
Absolutely. Alice in Chains, blown away. It sounded just like the record. Man, Papa Roach. When Eddie Mapp was mixing that band, he is an unhuman engineer. The things he knows how to do, because he mixes like Evanescence. He mixed Alice in Chains for a long time, I believe. The list goes on and on and on. Massive, massive artist. I remember like we were playing at like the BB&T Pavilion, and I remember going up to front of house and watching Papa Roach play, and it sounded like the most massive, insane rock mix I've ever heard. So pleasing to the ear, and he was at like 95.2 dB. And I was like, how do you do this? And that's where I really started to learn about like system processing and analyzation. Shinedown is another band. And then probably I'm going to say my favorite live show on a festival to date that I saw was Rob Zombie. I was completely floored. Not only how good he sounded, but he sounds like Rob Zombie should sound live. It's not an extremely overly produced, clean mix. It's pretty heavy in your face. He's got all his vocal effects going. John's guitar, his guitar sounds like the record. Ginger's an incredible drummer. His drums sound big and opening. They kind of like a 70s rock tone to the drums instead of a really tight metal sound, because that's what Zombie's albums sound like. And then with all the visuals and, the theatrics too, that's probably one of the most blown away festival shows I've seen in the rock world.
On the festival tip, you've been on Shiprock.
I've been on Shiprock a bunch of times.
What is that like? Because like for anyone that doesn't know, it's a bunch of bands on a boat.
It's wild. It is really, really wild. So for those that don't know, you get on a boat, like a Carnival, like the Pearl or the Norwegian Pearl or Carnival ship, and it's 60-ish of your favorite bands, and you just party for a week straight. And now like what people are starting to do, and they've done it from the beginning, is they usually get to like where you would get on the ship and for like 2 or 3 days. Like this year we did out in New Orleans, which was pure chaos because everybody wants to party in New Orleans. We even got like a Shiprock float, and they did a little Mardi Gras thing, or this was 2019, excuse me. So there's always like 2 days of pre-partying, and you get on the boat, and it's just everywhere you turn, it's your favorite musician, your favorite band. There's every game on the boat involves bands. And then there's like the upper deck where there's seats or standing for like 3,000 people. So, I've seen Five Finger, Korn, Breaking Benjamin, Hailstorm, Seether, In This Moment. They all play up there, and every band plays twice. So the larger bands play upstairs or on the main deck, and then in the theater. Theater holds maybe 1,500 people. And then all the other bands, there's like 4 or 5 other stages. So like you can go to the casino till 4 o'clock in the morning and like watch somebody play over there. And then you can go there's another band, and there's somebody in the piano bar. But it's a really cool way for fans to get to interact with their favorite artists. Everyone's always super chill. The dangerous part is you get like a credit card, like a hotel room key with your name on it. And that's how you buy drinks, food, whatever you want. And it's real easy to swipe that card about 80 times a day. And then the worst, I need to think of a name for this, but on the last day, I like to go look at people's bills on their doors because they just like stick the paper to your door. And I've seen some like 10, 15, almost $20,000 bills on Shiprock.
Wow.
No joke. Probably the highest bill I honestly remember seeing was like $18,500 on a couple's room. But there's people that save up all year, and there's people that are very well off that like this is their big shebang for the year. Like no holds barred, go wild.
It looks awesome. Like you see the pictures will show up and people that are there. And it does look pretty amazing. You mentioned the bands play twice. Do you get a bit of a break?
I do. Yes, actually. It's amazing. So yeah, and it's always really scaled down production. The whole idea is to have a really up close personal experience with your favorite band. So even like when we did it within this moment, we didn't bring really any production. Like we brought a few lights, but like Maria was just very like out there for the crowd to perform and do her thing. Most bands are the same way. So yeah, you perform twice, main stage and then in theater. And then after that, you're done working. So I have like, which is awesome. So I'll just go to the beach. The boat will stop twice at 2 excursions. One of them is always on a beach where they have a stage built. So like last time I did it, I went to the beach and had a margarita and watched POD play while the sun went down.
That's awesome.
It's great. And there's tons of cruises. I didn't even know this. There's a Tupperware cruise. No kidding. Where the whole cruise ship is, I'm assuming, an older group of men and women that are really into Tupperware. And they just like sell and trade and buy Tupperware. There's Kiss cruises, there's gay cruises, there's EDM cruises, there's Disney cruises. Like if you can think of something, Tupperware. There's enough people to go on a ship for Tupperware.
Now I'm interested about that. I'm gonna look that up after. I'm curious.
I bet there's a lot of Karens on there.
Make a documentary after, and we'll be like, hey, what's going on in this boat? My other thing, and this is kind of just a personal nerd question. Where do you put all the gear on that boat? Is there just like a giant room or section?
It's very limited. So a lot of it's backline, and if people don't understand what backline,
backline, okay.
Yeah. So I will call the company that oversees all of the instruments on Shiprock, and I'll tell them what I need. Like this many guitar amps, I need this drum set, these cymbals, these microphones. And the reason they do that is to prevent, like, we don't all need to carry 5 of the same thing. And all the bands are really cool about sharing gear. Like the whole thing is Shiprock is a fun party. It's taken serious. The bands perform, they're not giving a half-ass performance, but the whole idea is to make it fun. It's a vacation, relax. Like let's play a show as simple as possible. And so we share a lot of gear. Like within this moment, we only brought her big wardrobe case because she still did the costume changes for each song, and like 2 lights, and that was it, and a ladder. So we're just on to the last song. Like it was that skimmed down. So and you're very limited in what you can bring. You're only allowed so many pieces. If you're the headliner, you can get away with a little bit more. But otherwise, yeah, you try to set it up as simple as possible to enjoy yourself for band and crew.
I just want to throw that any bands listening, even big bands, will use a backline and share some gear if it makes sense. Because the logistics of it, when I saw that, I'm like, they've got to be backlining stuff.
Right. And I mean, I'm doing carnets and serial numbers months ahead of time. Like they're very organized with it because you go through customs. So I'm a customs agent. I have to have all my road cases, my weights, my dimensions, what's inside, the contents. We have to go through with the canine dog. So it's a very you really have to have your business together to like pull off Shiprock well. So like the first year I did that was with Pop Evil. We didn't really have anything to bring on. So I used that as my first opportunity to kind of learn the inner workings of the production.
Last question about Shiprock. Maybe it's not the cool question. Anyone, any new people getting sunburns? and
Oh
having
yeah, I actually have a picture. There was this lady that wore like a one-piece swimsuit, but it was like slotted like a checkerboard all over her body. I didn't wish to see this, but she decided to take off said swimsuit that evening in one of the hot tubs, and so you could see her body was like red and white, like a checkerboard. I'm talking like serious sunburn. She probably may still have those spots on her. I don't know.
It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long in the sun sometimes for people to be like, I made a mistake. I was out too long. And especially if, if people had a couple drinks and having a good time and not really worrying about it.
There's a lot of drinking on that boat. A lot.
But yeah, you're right. It sounds like some people, like, that's their thing. That's their thing, as they save up for it and they go for it.
And it's a family of people. Everyone is cool. I've never seen a single fight on the boat. I've never seen anybody get upset. There's 10-year-old kids to 80-year-old men and women on this boat. And it's a family. Like, Shiprock family is very real. And the cool thing is when we tour, like, I've made a bunch of friends from Shiprock, so they'll come out to shows. I'll give them concert tickets. We've had crawfish broils. People have brought me like sweatshirts, other food, snacks. Like, I've friends that work in aviation that have given us like some Southwest cards, or whatever. Maybe everyone helps everybody out, and so it's just a giant family.
It looks amazing. I'm glad you could share a little bit of your experiences.
I highly suggest if you ever get a.
I like how too Leanne was saying, how did I not know this was a thing? Well, now you do.
Now, you learned something new today, so now you can go to bed. You learned that Shiprock is something you have to experience at least one time in your life.
Just thinking, one of my memories, so we met, you were with Pop Evil, Papa Roach was headlining, and I was playing with a band called Age of Days. And one of my memories of you were behind the stage, like doing a workout. And I remember just like walking by and just nodding, saying hi and stuff like that. I remember thinking, like, I don't see this very often. Like, occasionally you see people going for a jog in the morning and stuff, but like, you don't always see people trying to fit a workout in when you're touring, and sometimes you just don't have time because you're traveling or you're sitting all the time. As a drummer, I always felt like the best shape I was in on tour was the day I left for tour, because it was just a struggle and downhill trying to find that time and the diet and stuff. Was there something that kind of that thought crossed your mind, like, I need to fit these workouts in, or like how did that kind of come to be?
I guess it started with, we talked a bit about this for a split second before we started. When I graduated from college, I remember going to get fitted for my suit for graduation. And I remember the tailor telling me I had a size 40 waist. And that's the size of my pants that I had to get made for graduation. And I'd always been like a 34, 36 up until that point. And so my body had changed a lot. And like, even through like the time of playing in bands, I didn't eat the healthiest. I lived in a party house for a long time where Jack Daniels was dinner all the time, and so you kind of fall into the trap and you don't realize it until you see yourself one day. And my biggest inspiration was Josh, or Chachi, from Pop Evil, the drummer. I mean, because he's a CrossFit champion. I mean, he's in impeccable shape. He has one of the most driven mindsets of anyone that I know, and he's very encouraging. And so I would watch him every day, and he was always so happy and so active and so outgoing. And I learned that a lot of that energy was coming from him working out. You get runner's high, you get these bursts of adrenaline, you get a very euphoric feeling from it. And so I would start working out with him, nowhere near to the extreme that he was doing. It would kill me. But I started to feel it. And then, like a couple months in, a few people were like, hey, you look like you've lost a little bit of weight in your face. And then that makes you feel better, so you work harder. And I never know what to do with weights. Like, the gym to me is very intimidating because I don't want to hurt something or break something or overextend or. So I'm like, well, I can run. Running makes sense. That's easy. And so that's really why I just started one day. I just went down to a treadmill and I ran as long and as fast as I could. And I ran like for 5 minutes and thought I was going to fall off and die. But then I felt the runner's high for the first time. I'll never forget that. I remember feeling the runner's high where it was a couple hours later in the day. And I was so excited for the show, and I was so excited to mix, and I felt so confident, and I was showered and clean, and I just had a workout, and I ate really good that day. And I remember how powerful that made me feel. And so at that moment forward, I was like, I want to continue this. I can't say I'm going to do this every single day. I'm never going to not eat McDonald's or not drink beer. But I can change things about myself because I noticed my brain starting to change. And my confidence went up, my drive, my motivation. I got better at mixing. I was researching more. I was reading more. And so really, I just felt these really positive effects that investing in myself was having. And that's why I continue to carry that on. Then I learned about all you need is a jump rope and kettlebells and your body. and you can run and you can do so many workouts with those basic things that you can keep in a suitcase on a bus.
I was going to say, do you pack those things away, or you just kind of sneak them onto the bus?
I mean, I keep a jump rope in my suitcase. We keep kettlebell. Usually every tour, somebody's bringing weights. You're going to have some sort of weights on the tour. I remember when we did a tour, it was 5-finger death punch, kill switch engage, a mirror, pop evil, God forbid, battle cross, and all that remained. It was a massive arena tour in 2012 called Trespass America. There were so many people that worked out on that tour. They built a gym every day. Between all the bands and buses and trailers, they had enough free weights, enough benches to do everything they needed to do. So every day there'd be 10 or 15 people out there, and they made it a thing. Like they put signs up on the wall that like open gym from 1 to 3, and everybody go out and help each other. So, you know, and I find that when even if I just jump rope for 10 or 15 minutes, it clears my head. I burn some energy. I sweat a little bit, and it sets the tone for the day. I invested in myself just a little bit, and other people start to take inspiration from it as well. They'll be like, I saw you doing it, so I decided to start doing this or that or whatever it may be.
No, good habits and bad habits, they are contagious.
Very much so.
Because one of those things too, it's just like when you see somebody else doing some things that you kind of want to do, but you're not sure if it's cool or if it's frowned upon, or, you know, but the idea of going for a run, like, hey, do you want to go? Or are you going to the gym? Hey, like, yeah, I'll be there. Because it's nice to have company at times. Not only people that like to work out by themselves, but like it's nice to have that, you know, somebody else is there because they get it as well.
Absolutely. And I love going with people, because even though I'm the one that may initiate that we go, they're the ones that, you know, they're like, oh, I felt good. This is fun. Or that I see them working for something, and it excites me that they're into it and they're bettering themselves. Like there's nothing better than seeing someone, again, I use the word several times already, invest in themselves. Like we only get one body, you only get one shot. I remember being like 16-ish years old, and I went to this convention, you know, like we can go in there, like we're seeking models and actors, come in and get discovered now. I went to one of those, and the whole long story was the guy that was giving the speech worked for Jiffy Popcorn. When he was a little kid, Jiffy Popcorn had just started, and he's selling 25 cents an hour or whatever he was making back then. This gentleman was almost 80 years old. But he took a job, and they're like, hey, we're starting this new popcorn company. We need a face for it. We think you'd be a good face for this brand. Are you interested? And he took it, and Jiffy Popcorn exploded. And, you know, he became a millionaire off of this. But I remember him saying this, and I'll never forget it for as long as I live. He said, you never want to be the 80-year-old man wondering what if. You never want to be sitting on your porch and your life has passed you by, and you're like, man, what if that day on July 20th, 2011, I would have taken that call from Pop Evil? Or what if this person that, you know, I think I'm in love with, like, what if I would never have spent the time with them or put in the energy to see what that would have turned into, you know, have that beautiful relationship? Or what if I would never have picked up drumsticks because my grandpa was like, I think you should go play soccer instead. Like I refuse to ever have those moments when I hit that age, because you get one shot, and every day is one more day less that you have.
Yeah. Internally we have a compass. Tell us the things that we'd like to do or like to try. And there's a lot of people, and that's really good advice. You're saying, you know, you don't want to have that what if later in life. There's a lot of people who think about something and they kind of get close to maybe starting it or trying it, and then it just doesn't happen. Right. And then the excuses mount up. With the health, the fitness, diet on the road, eating, any tips for bands on the road to try to have healthier choices or eat a little bit better?
Absolutely. My thing for me on the road was salad. We're very fortunate to have catering a lot of the time now, but you know, let me rewind. When I was at Pop Evil, we had a hot skillet, like a George Foreman style skillet on the bus. And so we'd buy like grilled chicken, vegetables, salad, and we would just make the chicken in the hot skillet with some like garlic and Frank's hot sauce, and then just get a giant bowl of lettuce, throw some like black olives, tomatoes in there, and eat that. And it was filling enough, and you're getting your protein, and it's super clean. Like white meat chicken is not bad for you if that's part of your diet, what you're going for. And when we have catering, you know, you have all kinds of desserts and all this mashed potatoes and mashed cheese, which I love. Don't get me wrong. But I will make a giant bowl of salad first when I sit down and eat, and fill myself up on that as much as I can. And then whatever I want past that, then I'll have like a little bit of chicken. Like if it's 5:00 in the afternoon, I can't eat spaghetti and meatballs when I have to work for another 8 hours. Like I'll be so exhausted. I just saw a comment from Brian Pratt, and yes, so that one. We all went out a couple weekends ago in Nashville and got hot chicken. I love spicy hot food. He's He's like, oh, we'll get the Poultrygeist. And I'm like, okay. I tried a piece like this big off of his plate, and it was like dark brown. And I put it in my mouth, and I immediately knew I made the worst mistake of my life. But I'm like, trying to be the tough guy, like drinking a beer. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. I mean, there's just sweat pouring off of my face. I can't talk. My throat is on fire. I feel like I ate a blowtorch. So I will not eat that on the road ever.
Spicy doesn't care how tough you are.
Nope, not at all.
It doesn't matter.
But yeah, just being, and also like I don't really drink soda much at all. Like an ice cold Coca-Cola sounds good from time to time. But on the road, I mean, I'm drinking 8-10 bottles of water a day. Like hydration is key, especially in the summertime on festivals and whatnot. Like if we have drinks like a vodka soda, like I won't get overly sugared drinks. I don't really drink beer that much. I like a cold beer here and there. But it's just all about moderation. And, like there are some days on a Sunday where we would go to a Chinese restaurant and just throw down and eat everything we could. And from all the MSG. It's all, you have to have moderation too.
No, it's actually here about the salad thing. Cause you have joke about it when you're on tour. You're just like, cause it like you go to McDonald's, like you usually get the fries, you don't get the salad, and the salad that they would give you is like this little tiny portion. But, trying to find your spots, even at grocery stores or your Walmart or something, it's just like, go spend the $5 on a big salad and just eat it. Like get some greens into you. And I would say too, you're talking about not drinking soda or pop. It's like, that is a killer for people sitting all day. Mm-hmm. This because there's so much sugar, so many calories in there, and it's so cheap, and it's like, no, drink water if you can. Because
right. I mean, also just for your joints and the functionality of the human body, like I remember when I was at this other job and I was doing the distribution for the COVID test kits, there was a couple people there that were definitely like larger than, they probably should have been at this point in time. And they had 2 bottles of Coke and then like a bag of gummy bears and like a bag of peachy rings. And they were just like Coke, peachy ring, gummy bear, Coke, peachy ring, like nonstop. And I was like, it hurt my stomach and like to watch it. Cause I'm like, and they were kind of like quiet and they weren't really, extroverted. And that part doesn't have anything to do with it, I guess. But I was like, it just doesn't look healthy or happy eating things like that. Don't get me wrong. I love peachy rings and gummy bears too. I ate gummy bears last weekend in Kentucky on the farm. But again, everything in moderation. You can't just cut something out of your life cold turkey completely, because then you're going to crave it or want it. It takes 21 days for the human body to create a habit. And so, if you really want to stop drinking soda, slowly start taking it out of your diet for 21 days. Once you reach 3 weeks, generally for most things, you're like, I don't really want it anymore. And like now when I taste Coca-Cola is the only soda that tastes good to me. Like I tried a Mountain Dew like a month ago, and it was the worst thing I've ever had to drink.
It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
62 grams of sugar in a can.
I have a sweet tooth, so I'm not one to talk so much about, not with the sugars and stuff. Like I definitely do crave it. And it's funny, like I don't crave pop as much as when we go on tour. As soon as we cross the border, like I start craving like Dr. Pepper and Coke and stuff like that. But I know how bad it is for me, knowing that I'm going to be sitting for realistically like 12 hours a day with some of the stuff that's going on with some of the tour managing stuff, the drums, just like you're sitting, you got to find your spots with it. But it's excellent advice to pass along and inspiration of just like, you can find the time, and it just gets down to self-discipline.
Absolutely. And that's like I was saying earlier, trying to get that AHA sponsorship from the here. This one is blueberry pomegranate.
Hold it up again. There we go. We got the shot there. It looks delicious.
It's fantastic. And the thing for me, it's just like the bubbly sensation, like I just like something like I'll take in the morning. I either do like an iced coffee with a ginger shot, or I will do one of these, and I kind of just switch it up. And they're great. I don't even really think about drinking anything else other than water.
Yeah, but that's what not to make this a pop or soda talk, but that was one of the things. Like I like the carbonation, and so switching to kind of like carbonated water and just like flavored carbonated water, like that helped a lot with some of the cravings when I would have it. But yeah, on the road, it's just like your diet, your health habits, like they just start to just compound over time. The decisions that you make today, it's just like, get that exercise in, try to eat a little bit healthier, try to find if you can sleep a little bit, like try to find a little bit more.
Yeah. Sleep is important.
Yeah. And if you've got a day off, if you have like a legit day of resting, like rest, like, get your workout in, like still do the things you need to do, but like try to do some, get some rest in. One of the things too, one of the longest tours I came off of was about 3 months. And I remember coming home and being in my own kitchen and feeling really awkward. Because when we talked about it, that kind of that pace of when you're touring and just feeling like really out of place because you've been with people every day for months, like 24 hours a day, and that became your family. You talk about being on the road for, no less than 8 months of the year for, over a decade. How does that impact you when you get home, or like, what does home feel like for you?
So this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, because this is going to dive pretty heavy into mental illness for me with that question, and I'll explain why in a second. So when we're on the road, we're go all day for 3 months straight, right? For example, so say I left on March 1st and I'm coming home at the end of May. You get so used to your surroundings. Like when you're at home all the time, you're used to your bathroom, your toilet, your car, your radio station, your restaurants. Like those are your things you're used to. You see them every day. Like they're not going anywhere. So when I would go on the road, I was, at the time, like single dude, no responsibilities, really no bills. I didn't have a rent payment because I was staying on the road so much. I didn't have a truck payment because I was on the road so much. So these people became my family. We were inseparable for any of the bands I worked for in the crew. But you get so used to like sleeping on the bus. You get so used to like turning your shoulder when you walk by somebody. You get used to the small bathroom. You get used to hotels for showers. But the thing that was happening to me was I was getting so involved with it, and I was so dedicated that when I came home, I hit some pretty like rough depression patches, because all this, like, you go from like these, this go lifestyle, arena, hotel, shopping mall, friends, going to the bar, going to the restaurants. And then all of a sudden you get on a flight and you get off at home and it stops. It's gone. Everything stops overnight in less than 12 hours. And I really struggled at first from like 2012 to 16 with this, because I would go home and I would just sit in my room all day, like in my anxiety. Like I was just sick all the time. I couldn't eat. My anxiety was through the roof because I didn't know what to do. Like everything just completely stopped. And I couldn't even make words. So for like weeks and weeks, I would just sit in my room, like trying to entertain myself. I tried to go play drums. I tried to go to the mall, but there was no foundation. I had no structure. I had no comfort. But then as soon as the road would come back, as soon as I was like a month away from a tour, then I was good again, because at that point I was like, okay, cool. I have something to look forward to. I'm advancing shows again. I've got emails coming through. I've got phone calls. And then my brain would kind of start like triggering back to like, okay, everything's going to be all right. I go do a tour for another 2 or 3 months. And then I came home and I had the same horrible, anxious, sick, empty feeling. And what I really realized was it took a long time, and the pandemic kind of helped with this, is I didn't really have any structure. I was making good money and saving it, but I didn't have a home. I didn't have my own vehicle. I didn't have a relationship. I had friends, but most of them were, clients on the road, or, buddies you see in Guitar Tech World, or you see in catering. So what I did was in 2018, January 18, after Christmas, I moved to Nashville. I packed a bag again, famous Brian packed a bag and goes. And I came down here for 5 days, and I found a building that I loved. And so I signed a lease for a year, went furniture shopping. And I remember like sitting in my recliner in my own living room, my own apartment that like I worked for. And I was like, I have a home now. Like I had my parents' home, and I always had places to go, but I had my place that I earned, that I worked at. And then I finally felt like that structure of having a home. And I was like, wow, okay, this is great. And then I could walk down to Broadway, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the coolest cities in the country. And then I felt good about that. So then when I would come home from tours, I had my own place to go to. I had friends in Nashville. I had my local bar, and that helped immensely, but it still wasn't complete. That then rolled into, we did the tour last year. COVID hit, so that was kind of a little bit of a setback. But I used COVID to really focus on like calming my anxiety, not over analyzing every little thing that's going to happen in life, and realize that, like we were talking earlier, it's okay just to chill out. Like if I want to sit at home and eat ice cream and watch Netflix for a day, there's no reason I don't deserve to do that, or I can't. Like, I'm not going to do it for months and months, but it's okay to do that. I don't have to be on the phone all the time. I don't have to be networking all the time. Though I like to do it, it's important to have that balance. And now having a relationship, it's really like complete the entire puzzle. So I feel like I have the most structure, the most balance, and the most confidence and comfort to this point in my life. And I think now, like when shows do start to come back and I go out and work these events, like coming home will be incredible because I have so much to look forward to and be thankful for that I never had previously.
Balance. It's finding
Absolutely.
balance. And
like yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes we don't realize how unbalanced things are until we're shown other things. Just like we don't realize we're sick sometimes until we get healthier and we're like, wait a second, like I thought this was my normal the whole time.
Absolutely. You know, I didn't have an apartment. So I was like, I'll just stay in hotels all the time. And I'm like, well, hotels get old. Like it's kind of sterile. Hotels, crappy ones, but it's like, it's not my shower. It's not my bathroom. It's not my bed. And then when I got my apartment, I'm like, finally, like all my clothes are here. All my stuff's here. I can cook in my own kitchen, my own shower. And I was like, it was like a quarter of my puzzle was complete. And then and then COVID happened, and I learned to calm down and focus and just really enjoy everything in life in the little moments. I really try to remind myself, like even like this right now, like I'm gonna remember this and think back like how much I enjoy talking with you, and hopefully that even one person listening right now will take something away from this and be like, I'm really glad he said that. That made me think this way about something. So you know that filled the other half. Now that I got my own truck and I don't have to rent anymore, I don't have to take Ubers all over the place. Like, you know, that was the 3/4 of it. And then now with the relationship that completed it. And so it's like how thankful I'm just so thankful, truly. Like all the structure's there.
Well, the energy you put out into the world, it's gonna find its way to you. You know, some of the things that you want and things that we don't realize that we might be missing at the time. Because again, when we're on the road, we're touring, when we're fully committed and invested in certain things, it's hard to see anything else. So, you know, a little bit of a silver lining I know last year again was a very hard year for a lot of people, but a little bit of silver lining where it forced a lot of people to slow down and go, you know, how do we figure this out? Like how do we you know, make some lemonade. I got one more question for you.
Bring it.
You say Brian just packs a bag and goes. I know you got some festival dates and stuff coming up this summer. You got to go right now. What are 3 work things that you would grab on the way out the door? 3 things you need to do your job.
My Pelican.
What's in the Pelican? What's in the Pelican?
It's like a.
What's in it? What's in it?
Oh, so the 3 things I have to have would be my what is it called? It's like a multi-tool that I wear on my belt. So it's got like screwdriver, bottle opener. It's got a little flat edge.
It's like a bat belt?
No. Oh my gosh. I can't remember. It's a multi-tool. Anyway, so I always have my multi-tool because you never know when you need like a screwdriver or you need to do this or that. Basically, like, open it up and it goes like this. And awesome. I can't remember. I'll remember as soon as I hang up, I'm sure. My headlamp that has my light on it because at nighttime or during the show or I need to get through a crowd and I'm like on a radio, I have to have my headlamp on.
You don't stop someone with a headlamp.
No, I just make my way right through the crowd. And then I always my phone, which sounds silly as a tool, but a phone on show day is so important. If you don't get radio work on a festival, like I have to have a phone with me because you know, like with Maria, she needs to get a hold of me, crew needs to get a hold of me, etc. So yeah, it would be my multi-tool, my headlamp, and my phone.
Let's say, is it the Leatherman?
Leatherman, thank you.
No, it's amazing. Things that we just need on the road, where it's just like, and also just thinking about it. You mentioned before, just like how hard Chachi plays the drums. What did his shoes look like? Because you mentioned how hard he works out too.
He wears. I think he wore like the individual like toe shoes for a long time.
Like the Keen ones or whatever they are with the
and he ran in those for a while.
Oh,
and I remember
Vibrant.
What's that?
The company is it Vibrant or Keen or something like
that? He'll tell you here in a second, I'm sure. He's the most knowledgeable in any sort of athletic shoe whatsoever. You have a different shoe for like doing deadlifts. You have a different shoe for running. You have a different shoe for this. There is a reason and right behind it, like for the body, the foot, the arch, the knee, etc. I got turned on to Nike Free Run. It's a very, very lightweight, very like small sole shoe, and that's kind of my go-to for running or anything workout.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just message after everybody's like, dude, it's a Leatherman.
So vibrant five. Okay, that's what I was thinking, because I remember seeing those, and it was a friend at the time was just like, because I looked at them like, those are cool, and she's like, no, you're not getting those, and it's like,
they look ridiculous. That's the first thing. He got like the most bright, ridiculous, like neon green color, I believe they were, but hey, they work.
Now that I'm an adult with an income, I might just buy them anyways.
So. I'll give him credit. His fashion and his shoe and his color game has always been on point. He always makes he goes for it.
Awesome. You know what? We're an hour and a half into this. I might have you in for a part 2 eventually, because I know you got more stories, and I've got a few more questions. But I think this is probably a good place to wrap things up. Anything else you'd like to mention or shout out to before we head out?
Very thankful to you for doing this. I love telling the story and talking about shop and talking about the road. And everyone that took time out to watch, that's super cool. Anybody could be doing anything out there right now. But they took time to listen. And again, I really hope that any little thing of whether it's inspiration or a thought or a process helps somebody. That's all my inspiration. And, I'm always bettering myself. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to grow. It comes from others, my inspiration, whether it's social media or I read something or, I'm at home and we're talking about this or that. Like, I'm going to cook fettuccine Alfredo tonight, and I haven't really made that in a while. But I'm kind of like, I want to try something different with it. So I'm going to go on Google and, figure out how to do blackened chicken.
That sounds excellent.
Two little additions I'll put on that is here at home, every day we do it more so at dinner, is we say one thing that we're thankful for. And that kind of stems from like my grandma and my family, because you have those days where you go to bed and you're just like, this day was dumb. I hated everything. It's not worth my time. But like, you really have a lot to be thankful for. First of all, the bed you're laying in, the food that you probably ate, the shower that you probably took. And it's all simple little stuff that we all take for granted, myself included. But I really be thankful for something each day. It gives you a little bit of gratitude before you go to bed. Helps you maybe wake in a better mood. And never be afraid to like ask a question or grow to learn. Like, that's so important. Even if you're sitting at home right now and you're like, well, what am I supposed to learn about? Like, I don't know. Do you know how to frame a wall? Do you know how to clean up? Like I've had to go on and be like, how do I find like this folder on my computer? And I'll start like researching. With my MacBook that I've had for 8 years, I can slide out and do corners. It just blew my mind. I didn't even know I could do that. Little things, just learn, like grow, like never stop growing, never stop learning. Because as you do, it's going to become a bad habit.
100%. That's sage advice. And it's too many days, weeks, months go by without thinking about these things. Being thankful every day. Like, there's always something. Even the crustiest person can still find something to be grateful for that day if they really think about it.
Absolutely.
Where can everybody find you online?
Facebook everything is just my name, Brian Hardaswick. Social media hashtag or for Instagram is @BrianHardaswick. I have Twitter, but I haven't used it for years. I don't really know how Twitter works. So I love iPhone photography. I take pictures all the time. I love sharing stories. So Instagram is my more like photo stuff that I just cool memories, pictures, events, whatever. And then I always try to share some, just positive, uplifting experiences and memories on Facebook. Never anything negative. Like I don't like negative. It brings people down.
Negatives. It's a bad cycle. It's a bad habit to get into.
It is. And it's something, I and everyone else, I'm sure, works on every day. You always try to be a little more positive. You get in a weird situation, you try to make the best of it and always try to find an optimistic, good outcome.
All right. Well, as far as your details, I'll put those, your link to your Facebook, I'll put that in the details below if you're watching the replay on YouTube. I just want to thank everyone again for tuning in tonight, taking part in the chat. Any questions we did not get to, we'll go through and answer those after. A lot of them are on Facebook and YouTube. Once again, my name is Mike Langford. This has been DearBands Live. Thanks again to our guest tonight, Brian Hardaswick. I want to bring one more thing up here. Josh said, proud of you, man. You are helping people. I agree 100%.
Much love. And again, so like I was telling you, Josh was, when I went to Pop Evil, he and I hit it off on day one, and we're inseparable. I'm going to give him a shout out. Of all the people in my life, by far one of the biggest mentors that really instilled like confidence and drive and just continue to push forward. And even on like bad days, he's like, here's the thing, dude, like you have option A or B, like good or bad. Like, even though you're having a bad day, like, just push forward and it will get better. And like, I'll have that dude's back until the day that I die, through and through.
I'm a firm believer we meet people in life when we're supposed to. So I take that as one of those things. You meet people at the right time, and it just helps put you on the right trajectory. So,
same. One quick, really fast thing.
Yeah.
Said, do you do meditation? And I do. Throughout the day, like when I'm at work on other like the side gigs that I do, I'll have my in-ear monitors in, and I do listen to like spa meditation, Zen, and it really helps. My mind goes like a Rolodex. Like that's how I explain it to people. Is it never stops going like this. Like, if you get it to like stop on a card. I'll listen to meditation music, and it really will just allow me to chill and focus. Even at the house here, when we have dinner or like we're just like focused, we listen to classical piano and meditation music.
It's good. It's good. You got to take time to calm the mind.
It's very important.
Very, very important.
Yes, sir.
All right, Brian, I can't thank you enough. I had a blast tonight chatting about this. Hearing your stories.
Let's just agree to do a 2.0.
Done.
All right. We'll talk about my obsession with Christmas parties and Christmas lights. That's how we'll start it off.
All right. Well, we'll plan accordingly then. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. That is our time tonight. Once again, Mike Langford. It's been DearBands Live, and Brian Hardaswick. I'm saying your name a whole bunch of times.
Hey, say it all you want. Try spelling that when you're a kindergartner.
I can only imagine. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thank you.